Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of Knee Deep in the Pod. I'm Dan.
And I'm Chris. And this podcast is basically a place for us to talk about games and reminisce about the good old days when we actually had time to play them. This week, we're going to be talking about worms.
Have you ever had worms?
Call this number. You know what? Immediate tangent. I have had worms. In fact, me and my siblings all have worms. And I just thought,
no.
Yeah. Like not in
recently.
Oh yeah, last week. No. like in our childhood. And I thought this was like completely normal. I mean, it's probably I probably think it's still quite normal. But I mentioned it one time, like it came up in a work conversation a few years back. And I was like, "Oh yeah, like worms." Oh yeah, like of course I have worms. They're like, you must have worms. You have worms? And they're like, no. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? When you're a kid, you get worms. You know?
Did you have some dodgy pork?
No, not that kind of worm. Like, not a tapeworm.
What kind of worms are there?
I don't really know. I mean, they're like bum worms.
Let's move on. But before we dive into that, Chris, save us. What have you been playing this week?
Well done. I've been wanting to mention this one for a little while now.
Ooh.
But other games have gotten in the way. Now is
Okay.
my chance. I and my wife have been playing a game called Kiwi.
Kiwi. Why does that sound familiar?
Probably because I told you sometime off.
Probably because it's a fruit. Yes, okay. You told me about it off camera. That's probably why.
That one. These are not the only conversations we have. Sorry to just shatter that like illusion for our audience. So Kiwi is a co-op game, one of a few that I bought around the Valentine's season because there were like some co-op games that were going on deal around the Valentine's season, and this was one of them. So it's kind of a puzzle co-op game, but the puzzles like they often are like time limited as well, like time pressured. And the concept is you're these little kiwi birds in New Zealand, and between you are running like a post office, basically. I think there it's called like a mail exchange or something or other, but it's basically a post office. And there is it's kind of a series of like these mini games where there's all these contraptions that you need to like for example a typewriter. Okay, so you need to type out these messages and send them off. Like they can kind of print them off and send them off. But of course a typewriter it's meant to be used by a human. It's quite big. And so you need to
I can see how that might be problematic for a kiwi bird.
So but you know, the owner of the postal doodad is like, hey, no problem. Just work together. You'll be fine. It doesn't really question it. So anyway, you like run around and you have to like jump on the keys to like write the words that it's saying. And like the keys are all jumbled up and sometimes they pop off and they go somewhere else. And like, it's all very silly and fun. So yeah, you're kind of running around doing these things. And then like, there's kind of, I would say 3 or 4 kind of main mini games. And like each time you play them, there's like a different variant. Like this time, it's like it has been before, but it's really hot and the dragonflies are out and they love picking up all the things you need. So you need to like zap them to get the thing back or... Anyway.
Sounds a bit like Crash Bash.
You know what? It's not like a million miles away from Crash Bash. And there's kind of lots of like these smaller games, but you're working together to beat the thing. So it's really fun. It's been a great kind of date night game for us to play. Fair warning to anyone that might be inspired to purchase it after my very exciting tales I've just told. Bit jank. bit janky.
Is it?
Yeah, a bit. Like, it's not awful, but like, expect to sometimes get caught on like corners of boxes, or not be able to get out of something, or like, be clipping into, I don't know, a typewriter or something. It's just like it's just a level of polish that isn't there. But don't let that spoil your fun. So there you go.
Nice.
That's what I've been up to. How about you?
So, I've been wanting to bring up this one for a while as well, but I think it's been a while since we last did a recording. But I played a very interesting game.
Okay.
Called Doki Doki Literature Club. Have you heard of it?
Can you believe I haven't? I've said it before, but the stuff you come out with on these intro sections is unbelievable.
I actually have no idea where I even heard about this one, but it's surprisingly well known. Like, it's surprisingly popular.
Okay. Wait, hit me with it again. Doki what now?
Doki Doki Literature Club.
Okay.
Yeah. What comes to mind when I say that? What do you imagine?
I'm imagining some sort of word puzzle vibe.
Okay. Yeah, it's not that.
Not even close. Okay. Some sort of like school-based, like, kind of drama, like you're in, those like games when you're interacting with loads of schoolmates and stuff.
Getting warmer. Yeah.
Okay.
You're close. You're very close, actually.
Okay.
And you didn't have much to go on there. That was just the name.
Okay. So tell
I'm
me.
impressed.
Oh, thanks.
So basically, on the surface, it looks like this sort of very cutesy, almost like a visual novel, where you're kind of interacting with like all these schoolgirls, basically.
Okay.
And I felt weird playing this, honestly, because I was like, is this going to turn into one of those like girlfriend simulators?
Yeah.
It's got that vibe to it. It's got sort of hints of like, oh, is this going to get a bit romantic? But it's not that at all. It's actually a psychological horror.
Oh.
Dressed up as this like very cutesy visual novel. And if you read the reviews on Steam, they all say like, don't read anything about this game, just go in blind. And that's exactly what I did. And at first I was like, what the heck am I playing? Like, what if my wife walks in? But I stuck with it, and I'm really glad that I did, because it was a really interesting game. And I don't want to say too much, but
okay,
it had a lot of twists, a lot of surprises, and it was kind of freaky. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So, because the horror element you just mentioned there has...
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe I should save this for like the next episode, but there'll be other things to say, so I'm going to go here now. We don't often talk about upcoming games, but a game I'm quite interested in playing. I mean, let's be real, I'll probably wait till it's on sale or something, because it's only just come out. But it's a game, I think it's called The Midnight Walk. I think that's what it's called.
Okay,
but
I've not heard of this.
Yeah, so let me tell you what, and I bet this is probably why. I mean, I get a bit of like game release news in my feed. But I expect I particularly got this one because I also enjoy a bit of like stop motion animation, like claymation vibes. Now, a game that we are both fond of called The Neverhood is of that style. And this game, The Midnight Walk, is also of that style. So think I don't know, Wallace and Gromit, but kind of creepy, like Coraline. Did you ever watch Coraline?
Was that like a Tim Burton or Tim Burton-esque?
Definitely Tim Burton-esque, yes. And that was technically that was an animation, but it kind of looked sort of like this kind of a bit clayey or a bit kind of, made out of real world materials, kind of models. Yeah. It looked like that. Anyway, so this is very much of that vibe, and also it's kind of a horror-y type game. And I don't usually go for horror games at all, but just the aesthetic of this game has me really intrigued. So yeah, I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm probably going to wish list it, and just at the right time, I'm keen to play it. But yeah, you describing that game just made me think of it. So yeah, hey, if any of our listeners dive in and play it before I do, let us know.
And speaking of new and sort of upcoming games, of course, the Oblivion Remaster has just come out.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, we could do a 10-minute slot about this.
Yeah, I mean,
we probably
what
don't
do you
have
think?
time.
Oh, we got time.
Okay.
It's a hot topic.
Oh, hot topic indeed. Okay, so what do I think? You know what? My opinions have changed a bit as time has gone on. But for those, I mean, for those that are coming into this,
it's only been a week.
I know. You know, my mind is ready to evolve, Dan. What can I say? So the first thing
time.
Ready but unwilling. My first reaction was like, kind of cool, and then I thought, but also a bit pointless. Like, why? Well, basically what I thought was I would never buy this.
Right.
Why do I say that? One, because I've played it, and I've played it at length, so I'm not desperate to play it again. Although the idea of replaying it and the kind of nostalgia and like revisiting it, the idea sounds great. But, you know, you and me are the same. Our Steam game backlog is outrageous. So, you know, am I going to carve out time to replay that game anytime soon? Probably not. So, like, and am I going to pay extra for a game I already own and can play as well? So this isn't a case of, like, you can't run the game anymore. And so, you know, because that happens, like, you know, the game doesn't work with old systems anymore. So they do a remaster and release it and make it playable on new systems. That's a cool thing. You know, but this is playable. It's not too old. People are playing it, so it's like, what's the point? and am I going to drop?
And it's a hefty price tag as well.
How much is it?
I think it was 50 quid or so.
Yeah. So I'm not about to drop 50 quid on a game I have already played, already own, and can play if I wanted to.
Yeah.
How about you? Before we go any further on my opinion.
Well, I feel the same. Like, for me, that's way too expensive for me to rebuy a game that I already own and have played at length.
Yeah.
Like, I have so many games already and so many games that I would sooner buy. And most of them are like in the sort of 5 to 15 quid range. That's like my typical...
Yeah.
That's how much I'll typically spend on a game.
Yeah.
So for me to spend 50 quid on a game, like, it's got to be really good. And I'm not saying it's not, but the appeal is definitely diminished by the fact that I've already played that game to death.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they've done a remaster. Mm-hmm. And if I was to replay Oblivion, which I probably will do in my lifetime, I would probably opt to do so on the remaster.
Okay.
I think when it comes to remasters in general, my kind of outlook is, as long as they make the game objectively better, then I'm happy. I'll go for the remaster.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when they sort of bodge it and they improve the game in some aspects, but then they introduce a whole load of bugs or they rip out functionality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you're kind of in this annoying situation where it's like, oh, well, I want some of the remastered functionality, but I also want what was good about the original game.
Yeah.
But by the sounds of it, they've done a really good job from what I've read. So I'm pleased it exists.
Okay. Would you like me to share my slightly evolved thinking?
Please do.
So, and we can credit one of our listeners, Richard, for this insight.
Thanks, Richard.
And that is, he made the point that it makes it available to a new generation of gamers. And I think he's absolutely right in that regard. You know, the current generation of gamers, are they going to go into the archive and, you know, pick up original Oblivion from, you know, when did it release? I don't know. 2006, was it? I can't remember. But it's like mid to late noughties. You know, are they going to do that? No. Particularly with, you know, there's great games being released all the time, you know, and plenty of like epically popular and great games, you know, to like comparably epic and popular of Oblivion, but like more recent. So like, you know, would you go and do that? Probably not. So releasing it anew with a remaster, you know, makes it appealing and accessible for you know, new players that haven't played it before. So, you know, when he said that, I thought, okay, yeah, maybe I've been a bit short-sighted and a bit reactionist. And I was thinking, you know, I mean, I suppose my original opinion was based entirely on me, and I stand by. Kind of pretty much stand by my opinion. For me, I'm unlikely to buy it. And as you say, like 50 quid, like rare is the day that I spend more than £30 on a game. And you know, if I'm spending that much, it's because I really want the game, you know, or like it's, you know, there's a really good reason. More often I'm kind of in a similar price point to what you said. I have seen a few reviews and a few side-by-sides. I've seen some of the like models of like enemies and stuff. Like the mud crab looks amazing. Like the new mud crab versus the old mud crab is like makes the old mud crab a joke. It's that, you know, that's how much of a difference it is. Like it's incredible, the new one. Other models, you know, in the world, I was like, not as convinced. It's like, is that better?
Really?
Yeah, I was like, is that better? I'm not sure if it is. Like, it looks a bit newer or different, but does it look better? And I'll be honest with you, there are a couple where I just thought, you've taken the design in a completely different direction, and I don't like it as much. Yeah, there's one or two I'm just like, yeah, I don't like it as much. So, you know, it's a bit of I'd say there's some elements of a mixed bag in that regard, and there have certainly been criticisms of like, and this is kind of interesting, because it's kind of, with my musician's hat on, it's kind of almost the way you kind of master the game at the end, like in the way that you master a song and you kind of do little EQ tweaks and compression and, you know, do those final polishes.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of a similar, like you can kind of have a similar mindset to the color palette and like the way a game looks at the end of its render. And it's just like the whole color palette is like been dulled down a bit and it's not nearly as vibrant or colorful. It's like, yeah, it's interesting watching kind of side by sides. It's like a bit more, I mean, this is an oversimplification, but a bit more brown. Yeah, a bit more brown, a bit more dull, which is a shame, you know, because I mean, I don't kind of think of it as like, oh yeah, that's a really vibrant game in the same way that I might, you know, Crash Bandicoot or Spyro. But it was quite vibrant, particularly when when you compare it to the remaster, or I suppose, you know, other contemporary games of the time, or, you know, or in its near future, where, you know, I think like the PS3 era, for example, you know, people often kind of look back on that now and think of that as a kind of a gritty, dark, essentially the brown era, where everything's kind of a bit grim and brown.
I kind of feel like there is a general trend where as games get more realistic, they become duller and less colorful. It's not a hard and fast rule, but like in general, the more you try and make something realistic, I think the more you end up with like a bland experience.
Yeah. So there you go. That's our little chinwag about Oblivion, folks.
There you go.
Now, I have another thing I want to talk about in terms of upcoming games, so I'm going to save that for the next episode. So stay tuned, everyone.
Oh, I'm very intrigued. We're both thinking it.
Yeah, we are. But for now,
that was an Anchorman reference. So worms,
right? I'm gonna start with a question to you, Dan, because I think
hit me.
I'm gonna kapow.
Flipping it.
Worms. Why worms? Why is worms our topic today?
I think we're just scraping the bottom of the barrel, to be honest.
Yeah, we're out of ideas, folks. Please start posting your ideas at the bottom of our podcast.
No, it was genuinely suggested that we do more of a deep dive into certain franchises, and I think Worms is a good one to choose because it's a very long-running franchise.
Yeah.
I can tell you when the first Worms game came out, and it was 1995.
Wow.
So there have been Worms games for a long time, and there have been many of them as well. So the ground's ripe for the picking. Is that a phrase?
It's sort of, I think you've merged a couple of phrases there, but I'm following you.
We'll go with it.
Yeah, the ground is ripe for the picking.
Are you picking up what I'm dropping? So
I'm gonna. Well, shall we start with where it all began?
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just clarify that. I'm not saying necessarily where the franchise began, but your first experience
shed some light
of Worms. Tell me.
My first experience.
Yes.
I remember the PS1 era. I don't remember the first Worms game particularly well. But I do remember Worms Armageddon very well.
Yes.
We had that on PlayStation 1. I remember having people round and passing the controller around, and the controllers somehow inexplicably getting tangled up, even though I'm pretty sure you only need one controller for Worms, right? You just pass the controller around. I remember people never understanding the controls and then pressing X to start their turn and accidentally firing a bazooka at their feet.
Uh-huh.
I remember doing a kamikaze across a bridge to try and kill as many worms as possible, and inevitably killing only your own worms.
Yeah, missing everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember trying to do a super sheep, not being able to control it, and, plunging it into the water. We all have these memories, It was, in hindsight, there were elements of that game that were quite not very user-friendly.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's is the word hard? I was kind of thinking, is it a hard game? And it's to some degree it is, but as you say, I think some things just weren't intuitive.
No, and yet it's created these hilarious memories, I think. Partly because of that. Because it was just chaos, wasn't it?
It was complete chaos, and there is a real sense of just whimsy and silliness and fun. There's just each level has, or most levels have a strong theme, and that can be anything from let's have the tip, the rubbish tip, and it's gonna and there's your worms are having a fight, and you can see there's some rubbish bags, and there's some bottle, and there's some trash cans, and really strong theming. And then you might also go to a graveyard, or I think you get to ones that are kind of quite pop culture referencey. I don't know, I'm kind of making this up now, but having something like a 007 themed level would not be out of the realms of possibility, would it? And there'd probably be some kind of silly, mick takes in there, kind of,
oh yeah,
some satire.
It was anything goes.
Yeah, I love
Worms
that.
Games.
Just if it sounds fun, stick it in there, sure. I think that's pretty much the filter the devs would have used. It's is it a laugh? Yeah, go on then. Yeah,
I think developers were sort of less strict back then. It was just, let's chuck it in. Why not?
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this recently. Worms has such a strong identity, even though the concept is so simple. I mean, you're just controlling a bunch of worms, but they've managed to come up with a whole bunch of extra whimsical stuff that's become really iconic.
Yeah.
Like the banana bomb, the old woman, the holy hand grenade,
Yeah. And they are, as you say, they are iconic. People will recognize them even if they haven't really played Worms very much, or perhaps at all. Maybe they've just seen seen someone else play it. I think there is an element to kind of pop culture impact of the franchise. In part, that speaks of its success, but also of its longevity. My early memories, I think my early memories are of Worms Armageddon in particular. Yeah. We just had a demo on PC. Oh. And it literally had 2 levels on it. It had cars, which is this car scrapyard. Great level. And then it had another one called Horny, which was just like, it was kind of an underground cavern with all these like horns, I guess. They kind of looked like trumpety. I mean, as a kid, I didn't really know what they were. Like
you don't have to tell us what they look like. It's all right.
Well, honestly, my sister at that, it was of an age where she kind of like, she'd recently learnt the word, or like learnt the word sometime during us playing Worms, over the weeks and months. And she was like, "Oh, I think we should stop playing. I think that's rude." But anyway, so there was just these 2 levels, and we'd replay them again and again and again. I think it's just one of those. I'm not even sure what to call. Like, is Worms part of a genre? Is it just a genre all of its own? I don't know. But like, there's quite a wide appeal. And I think there's just a core gameplay about it that's just fun and accessible and silly. And like, as you said, like, it can be a party game. Like, you have your mates around and just like, hey, we've all got a team. You have like 3 or 4 different people playing.
Yeah.
Or you can do like, play against the AI. You can do single player. Like, there's campaigns. There's so much you can do with it. I don't know. It's just quite inviting.
Yeah, and there's so much replayability because every game is different. As far as the genre goes, I think that Worms is like an evolution of some DOS games, which were sort of little artillery games.
Okay.
Where you control these tanks and you're shooting at each other.
Right.
And I even remember a very old game called Gorillas.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this, but you controlled these gorillas. You couldn't move, but you had to like lob bananas at each other across the map.
Okay.
And it told you the wind speed, and you had to specify like the angle and the power of your banana.
Yeah.
And hope to hit the enemy gorilla. So like, I think there have been similar games, but Worms kind of just evolved it, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And just like established this strong brand and presence. As you say, there's just so many. So like, I've definitely played Worms 2. I maybe have played Worms 1. We've talked about it briefly on the podcast before. And like, the graphics are, it's a few pixels pixels are trying to be a worm. And it's kind of, you have to sort of suspend your disbelief. But the concept is the same. And like, silliness and fun ensues. But since then, I mean, ones that I spent most time with, Worms 3D, which I think is just an excellent game. Yeah.
I mean, that's like takes the genre to an entirely new dimension, right?
Unquestionably.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's a Worms game, but I think of it as being almost like in a totally separate bucket.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
It's a very different kind of game to the 2D Worms games, but still kind of faithful to them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the concepts are much the same, but it does feel quite different. But yeah, I spent a lot of time playing with those. Playing with that game, and there have been plenty more. In fact, why don't you share a couple that you have played with since? But there's one in particular that I have played, which feels quite like typical Worms. But just with a few, Worms Clan Wars is the one I've played, and that is like, I've only played the single player like campaign, but it's kind of Worms as you know it, but like the story is fun. There's a funny narrator. There's a lot of comedy in there, and as you play more, you get like your worms end up having like classes. So you have ones that kind of specialize in different things. So it's kind of just a little twist on the formula. But it's, other than that, it's much the same, just with a few modern extras.
Is that anything like Worms Forts?
I don't think so. Tell us about Worms Forts. I've barely played that one.
I've barely played it myself. I own it. It's one of the ones I've always kind of intended to go back to, but I think your worms have different roles and you can build things. You can build towers or something like that.
Right.
So it's adding like some more strategic elements, I suppose, to the gameplay.
Okay.
Which is cool. Like, I think it's very cool that you can kind of do anything with these worms, can't you? Once you got the basic concept of like, okay, you got these two teams of worms trying to kill each other in either 2D or 3D.
Yeah.
You can kind of do anything with that.
Yeah, it's super like, I don't know, it's just a concept and like a brand. It's just so flexible. Like when you said that, it almost made me think of like, I don't know, almost like The Simpsons or something. You know how like there've been like so many, it's one of those kind of brands that's just like, oh yeah, should we have like a racing game? Yeah. Like Simpsons can do a racing game. Should we have a wrestling game?
Yeah, totally.
Let's do it. Like, you know, it's one of those. It's just like Worms. You could probably do like release a Worms most things, and people would just accept it. Be like, oh yeah, Worms do that. Why not?
And they have. They've done Worms Golf. They've done. I'm serious. There's all kinds of like Worms spin-off games which I haven't really tried, but I think they have done a good bunch. But
yeah. That always makes me think of, again, like Mario. Like Mario's done like every like genre type. They've like done a Mario of it, haven't they?
Yeah, 100%. Like if you've got a strong mascot, you can do a lot with that. And I think, personally, I think it's a shame that they haven't done more. Because the Worms games, they've sort of died out, haven't they? You don't really hear about them anymore. I think there have been one or two in recent years. But I feel like when people talk about Worms, they're talking about the old school Worms games.
Sure.
I feel like they haven't had like a really strong game in the series for a long time. Yeah. And I remember trying some of the new ones, like maybe Worms Reloaded or Revolution, and I just thought it was like a worse version of the old Worms games. It was like they tried to improve the graphics.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think it looked that good. It was super laggy as well.
Oh, no.
And then there were only like a handful of weapons. Like the whole appeal of Worms is you got loads of crazy weapons.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have that. It was like, it felt like they'd taken the concept of Worms and then just made it worse.
Oh, that's such a shame.
Rubbish. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame when you see just like franchises kind of die, like kind of, or decline. Maybe decline is better. I've just like the briefest of searches on Steam. I can see a game called Worms Rumble from 2020.
Right.
So it's within reasonable recency, but. At a glance, it says, reviews are mixed, and there aren't that many of them, like 1,000. So it's like, okay. Which is a real shame.
If I see on Steam that the reviews are mixed, that's a massive red flag for me.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to go back for a second. We were talking about genres and like it almost being its own thing, but then you started talking about like DOS games, and you're right, actually. I've played a few other like of those kind of more basic. You maybe can't even move your people, but you can shoot. Yeah. But I think certainly worthy of a shout out in this conversation has to be Hogs of War.
Hogs of War?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I spent so much time with that game. Like, that did 3D before Worms did 3D. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like, it's everything you would think it would be in terms of like, it's basically Worms, except there are pigs. And it's got the same sort of approach of like whimsy and silliness. And it's narrated by Rick Mayall. So, what else could you want?
Who's that again?
So, he's the guy from Drop Dead Fred. He's also the guy, he's like the ridiculous posh, like pilot in Blackadder. He's just like a comedy, he's a bit of a comedy legend. Anyway, it's like just lots of like classic like British sitcom stuff. So anyway, and he's like absolutely nails just how silly the narration on that game is, and that's like half of the fun. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing. You kind of have these different a load of different silly weapons, and then actually that goes into the thing of like you end up, if you do the campaign, you like level up your pigs and they start to specialize in different things, and which means they get a few different weapons. Like this one has like the sniper rifle and this one has like the explosives or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, a bit of a diversion, but like that is just, Worms was clearly making enough of a splash that people felt like it was worth like cloning it and making their own spin.
It's a shame that Hogs of War, it was a one and done.
Yeah.
They never kind of went anywhere with that after that one game.
Absolutely.
Speaking of like other Worms type games.
Yeah.
I feel I have to mention Lero because I spent so many hours playing Lero and Lero Extreme.
Yeah.
Which were basically Worms, but in real time.
Yeah.
Which, obviously changes the game quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because suddenly it becomes like this action-packed, like fast-paced 2D shooter, but they were great games.
For me, I think the biggest difference between Lero and Worms was you had a ninja rope that actually made sense.
Yeah, the ninja rope in Lero was phenomenal. In Worms, it was like, yeah, you go towards the hook, like where you've hooked on.
Yeah.
You hope for the best as your worm frantically bounces from one part of the terrain to another. Then you extend the rope and hope it goes in the right direction. And if it doesn't, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, and like if you're me, you've somehow got like a 50-50 chance of prematurely ending your go by accident. And like Lero, you went like really quite far into that. So like, for the listeners, as Dan says, it's kind of real-time Worms in that you're controlling one worm and it's kind of a deathmatch scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can you're digging around in dirt and like that's part of it. You can you've got open areas and then you can dig and like make tunnels. And then you've got like a selection of weapons that you get to play with. Pickups and all that stuff. But it's basically kind of a deathmatch. But there was kind of this whole community of like modders and, like all this stuff. So you'd make like your own maps and your own like weapon sets and all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one of the strengths of Worms actually, which we haven't touched on, was the customization.
Okay.
They had loads of options for customization, and Lero took that one step further where you could make your own weapons from scratch. Like you could mod the game almost without limits. I mean, there were some limits, but you could do a lot with it. And I did, I made a ton of mods and had a great time playing them. I think one of my favorites was I made a Diablo 2 mod.
Yeah.
Where you could play as different characters from Diablo 2. So you'd choose the weapons that would make your worm a sorceress or a necromancer. And that was super fun to make because there were a lot of challenges to solve. Like there were two very different games. So how do you translate these like Diablo skills into this 2D Worms game?
Yeah.
But that was great fun and we spent a lot of hours playing that.
Yeah, I mean the other one I remember in particular, you did a weapon set that was based on, was it Jak and Daxter? It was like these like black, is it Eco? What's that stuff called?
Oh, that was Tim made that one. He made a Jak and Daxter one.
Jak and Daxter.
I made a Ratchet and Clank one as well.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, really, really cool stuff. So, I want to talk a little bit about single player because I think the game changes quite a bit when you start doing single player.
Yeah.
This is going back to Worms, I should say. So, I mean, I'd spent, some time doing single player with Worms Armageddon, and I had an okay time, but to be honest, it was quite hard, and maybe I was young as well, and so it was just a bit rubbish. Like, it would often, like, as you say, like, a lot of the fun seemed to be that there are all these silly weapons you get hold of, and it's just the chaos, okay? And, like, the early levels of a campaign, you've kind of got, the shotgun and a grenade, or maybe a cluster bomb if they're feeling spicy. So it's like, there's not... Just that element wasn't really there, and often like the odds were kind of stacked against you. So anyway, what I spent a lot of time playing was the single player of Worms 3D, and I just thought it was great. And like, there are a few reasons. One, I think that game does better in being really fun, or at least I found it better at feeling really fun, even if you do have a like reduced weapon set, even if you have got more basic weapons. It remains to be fun and silly and great. But also, as I say, like how you'd have like levels that were themed, have these like strong themes, and that goes beyond kind of places, but it might be like, I don't know, Greek themed, for example, or kind of, I have like these sorts of things. And actually, like in Worms 3D, a lot of the teams that you would go up against in the campaign would be themed as well. So you could have like these, like you'd be up against the Viking team, and there'd be kind of their voices. They'd say things that were kind of all like Viking-y and talking about Valhalla and all this kind of silly, like Odin. Like it was all this stuff. It was just silly. I loved it. And you'd unlock more of these like the voice sets and all these things that you could then use in your own multiplayer games if you wanted to. But it was just, I don't know. There were interesting ideas. And like, as I say, nothing was out of bounds. Like there was a level that was all about like a theme park, and like you had to kind of reactivate the roller coaster, and then the people, I don't know, the carnies are like against you, and they want to wreck your fun. They don't want you to turn on the roller coaster. I don't know, just like these, it's just these like silly, fun concepts, and they just kept doling them out. Like there was a vampire one, there was one where it's like the bad guys are vampires, and the like worst one of them is Dracula. It was just like nothing was out of bounds.
You must have got quite far in that campaign.
I did get quite far, yeah.
Because I played a lot of the campaign as well in Worms 3D.
Okay.
And my main memory was that it was really hard.
Okay.
Because it would set you objectives, but then you had to be really precise in how you achieved them.
Right.
And normally there was like a particular strategy you had to use because you only had 3 turns to like complete the objective or something like that.
Right.
So I think I got pretty far, but I just remember it being hard.
Yeah, now you say it, I think there was quite a lot of like replaying levels to get through it. But yeah,
like if you don't get the perfect bazooka shot on that guy on turn 3, then you just got to do the whole thing again.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, many fond memories for me. Anyway, you know what else that game had? And I'll just say quickly, for like, if the levels that existed that were designed were not enough for you, and there were lots and plenty to be cracking on with, but there was also like one of those level generator things. So like type in a word, or like just any characters you like, basically. But and it will like make a level for you, like a random level is generated based on that word. And then if you like it, then you can like remember it, jot it down, and you can use that, and it works again. The same word would make the same level. So we kind of, I did that quite a bit and found some pretty cool, like generated some pretty cool levels.
Yeah, that was a really nice feature. I remember like looking up the best seeds, and then we'd find a seed that just generated a tiny little platform.
Yeah.
Surrounded by water. And then just whoever places a dynamite first wins kind of thing.
I think one thing in that game is just like poke became like completely OP. Just like...
Oh yeah. Like, in fact, that is maybe one criticism of the series in general, is that hitting worms into the water was like the only viable way to kill them.
Right.
I mean, you could like use a couple of dynamites or a sheep or whatever, but it took quite a while to whittle down their health.
Yeah.
In like normal circumstances. And it was way more fun just to whack them off the edge.
Yeah, that's fair. And you'd like be ending turns just trying to like get into some cubby hole so that you can't be like blown off the edge. Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Go.
What was your like go-to team name or theme, because you can make your own teams, right?
Right. Yeah. Back then, I don't know, I'd probably have like based it on like, I don't know, like Star Trek or something. I'm not quite sure. I'd probably have chosen like some like, TV show that I liked and like name them all characters after that or something. How about you?
I used to have a breakfast team.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, the worms were all called like orange juice, Weetabix, toast, I think was one of them.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Like you were free to create your own teams and you could be as silly as you liked. It was great.
Yeah. So,
whoa, that's never happened before.
What? Silence.
Like, ran out of things to say. Here's one.
Okay.
If they were to make another Worms game tomorrow, what would you want that to look like?
You know what? I'm really glad you asked that because it's reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier.
Okay.
Now, at risk of, and we've kind of talked about this in the past, when we talk about sequels and stuff, but I want it to be like, I want it to use the winning formula, basically.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I just want them to use the same. I just want them to use the winning formula to not lose it. Like you said, like your example you gave earlier, where it was basically Worms, but worse because they'd left out a load of the cool things and just like, I don't know, maybe the money ran out or their time ran out. Who knows?
Yeah,
I would want just like a fully featured classic Worms game. For me, I probably want 3D because I just enjoyed that so much, but a 2D version would be absolutely fine too. And you know what? I was thinking about this, I was reading up about real-time strategy games lately, and basically the kind of the commentator of the piece was like, yeah, there's been a bit of a lull lately, although there seems to be a bit of resurgence now, and basically kind of said, like, well, we had quite a lot of games that came out over the last, 5 or 10 years where, it was real-time strategy, but like they had these unique mechanics and they tried to evolve the genre and did like these different things.
Yeah.
And like they, mixed reviews, nothing quite landed in a big way. And then basically a Command and Conquer, like a completely unashamed Command and Conquer clone came out lately. And he was just like, yes, like this is exactly what I wanted. It's, it's scratching the itch. It's kind of all the things I want it to be. Just build a town, make a load of troops, defeat your enemies. And it was just like, his thing was basically just like, don't mess with like the core, like the winning formula, basically. But like bringing this back to Worms, just do the thing that's really good and has, and like do it again, but new.
Yeah, I agree. I think like they've tried going in a slightly different direction. They tried making Worms but worse. What if they just tried making Worms but better? I know that's a crazy idea, but like, don't give me fewer weapons. Give me more weapons. Give me more maps. Give me more customization, more game modes. It's not that difficult of a game to make, to be honest. Like, if you're talking about a 2D Worms game, like an indie dev could crank that out in a week.
Yeah, come on, guys. Oh. And Knee Deep in the Pod is available for consultation. Just get in touch. Knee Deep in the Pod at gmail.com.
That's actually not our email address.
Oh, no. What is it?
But we do have an email address.
Is it Kudnip?
Sorry?
Like KN. No, wait, KDITP. Is it that? At gmail.com.
This shows how often we like advertise our email address. You can reach us either in the comments on whatever platform you're listening, or by emailing kneedeepinthepod at danjb.com.
At danjb.com, of course it is. There you go, folks. Boom. Worms. So, thank you guys for joining us for this episode. Episode 12, no less, of Knee Deep in the Pod. Hope you had fun. We certainly did. What can I say? I've been Chris, probably.
I've been Dan.
And we'll see you never, because this isn't a video contact, okay? This isn't video content, but you might hear us when you listen to us again soon.
Bye.